Hello there, and during this tutorial we're going to be learning how to design a 3D bookmark. And as a 3D design software, I'm going to be using Tinkercad. Now here I am already logged in and have entered the Tinkercad interface to start working on my new design. Now the first thing you're presented with in the Tinkercad interface is the work plane. This is going to act as your table where you're going to be designing. Here you have the menu bar where you have a set of tools and commands. You also have commands where to import, export, or send your work. Here you have the basic shapes panel where you have and you also have other tools like the work plane. We'll be speaking about that later on. The ruler command and the notes tool. Now you have a new feature called the notes tool. So here's the basic shapes command where you could drag and drop all provided shapes by Tinkercad. And you also have shapes, shaded shapes to help you create holes on your project. And you also have tools to change the view of the work plane. Like for example, you could zoom in by clicking this plus sign and zoom out. You could also change the work plane from viewing in 3D to 2D. Let's switch it back to 3D. Another handy feature in Tinkercad is that you could zoom in and zoom out by using the scroll wheel on your mouse. So you could scroll up to zoom in and scroll down to zoom out, as I'm doing here. Now you could also move the work plane by clicking and holding the right mouse button and drag, click and drag to the position you prefer it to be in. You could also see what's underneath the work plane. All right. Now let's click on the home button to return to the original position we were in. You could also move your work plane by pressing and holding the scroll wheel button on your mouse. So click and hold the scroll wheel and move the work plane to which position you want it to be. Now, before we start, I suggest that you change the name of your project. Please change it to something you could identify, like for example, Bookmark, Bookmark with your name and surname, and so on. Now from the basic shapes panel, we're going to take a box. Click, drag and drop onto your work plane. When you release the shape, it's going to be automatically selected. You will realize that this is selected because the white handles appear. Now, what we're going to be doing now is to change the dimensions of the box. So let's click on the lower right handle. There you go, it turned red when selected. Now let's change the width of our box by clicking on that 20 millimeter measurement that's there by default and type in 30 and enter. And there you have the width as changed. Now let's change the length of our bookmark. Click on the 20, change it to 50 and enter. Now let's change the thickness. Reselect the rectangle, click on the topmost handle, select the 20 and change it to 1 millimeter. Enter. And deselect by clicking outside on the work plane. Alright, now let's change the perspective of our work plane by clicking and dragging the right mouse button. Okay, now let's continue by designing the bottom part of our bookmark. So click and drag a roof shape onto your work plane. And let's rotate it to 90 degrees as shown. Now let's scroll up to zoom in. Now as you can see, the roof shape is not entirely on my work plane. So let's click on this cone-shaped handle. Click and drag up until the roof shape is on your work plane. You see that? It's on 0, therefore it's on my work plane. Deselect and reselect the roof shape. And now let's change the thickness to 1 millimeter, the same as the rectangle as we did before. So let's change a little bit the perspective. Now click and drag the roof shape until it's underneath the rectangle. Now click on the top right handle and change the width to 30 millimeters. Leave the length in 10 millimeters. To group both shapes together, we first must align them. So select both shapes by holding the Shift key button on the keyboard. Then on the menu bar, click on the Align tool. Now let's start to align both shapes. Click on the mid-bottom handle and then on the bottom left until they're aligned this way. Now select the roof shape. Make sure the handles are around the roof shape. Now with the arrow keys on the keyboard, lower down the roof shape until it is as shown. Now click and drag to select both shapes and select the group tool on the menu bar. You will notice that both shapes are grouped when they turn the same color. Alright, now let's duplicate the shape we have made. Select it and go to the menu bar and click on the duplicate command. Click on it twice. Now click and drag the duplicated shapes that we have just made and separate them a little bit. Now, to help us identify which shape is which, we're going to change the color of the middle shape that we have just made to green. Now let's change the thickness. I have personally changed it to 5 millimeters. And let's change the width to 25 millimeters. Now let's change the length to 50. Okay, now let's select the shape on the right. Click on the bottom right handle. Change the width to 20 millimeters. And now let's change the length to 40. Okay, now select the mid shape, the green one that we have just made, and change it to a hole. Click and drag to select both these shapes. And on the menu bar, click on the Align tool. Okay, now let's align them to both stay at the middle, like this. Now click on the mid alignment handle And there you have both shapes are at the center. Okay, now I'm going to change the alignment again, so select both of them, click again on the alignment tool and click on the topmost handle to make both shapes align at the top. Alright, now let's click on the shaded shape, and with the arrow keys on our keyboard, we're going to lower the shape a little bit. Okay, that looks about right. Deselect. Now select them both by clicking and dragging, and click on the group command on the menu bar. There you have it. Both shapes are grouped. Since the other shape was shaded, it created a hole. Now click and drag this shape over here into the center of the shape that we have just made. Now, click and drag to select both shapes and select the Align command on the menu bar. Now, please align both shapes as shown here. Okay, there you have it. Okay, now select the shape in the middle once more, and with the arrow keys, lower the shape till it's as shown. Now click and drag to select both shapes, and let's group them with the group command on the menu bar. Now let's give this bookmark a rounded tab by clicking and dragging around the roof. So let's rotate this round roof by 90. Now let's re-rotate it by 180 again. Click it once more, and let's raise it to the 0 on top of my work plane. So let's change the thickness, and again to 1 millimeter, the same thickness as my bookmark. Let's change the width to 30. And let's align them together to be central with each other. Okay, deselect, select again the roof, and lower it till it touches your bookmark. Click and drag to select them both, click on the group command till they form one whole piece. And there you have it. That's our first functional bookmark. Now at this stage we're going to start decorating it. And I'm going to start decorating it by adding text to my bookmark. So click and drag text, the text shape, onto my work plane. And let's change the text. Like here I've typed D&T, and you could also change the font of your text. Now I'm going to change the sizes by clicking and dragging the lower right handle. Okay, now I'm going to rotate my text to 90 degrees. Now click and drag to select both shapes, and click on the Align tool and align them as shown. Okay, now I want D and T to be a hole on my bookmark. So first I'm going to change some sizes and perhaps change its position once more by using the alignment tool. Now I'm going to click on the D and T and change it to a hole. Click and drag to select them both, and click on the group command. And there you have it, both shapes have grouped. D and T is now a hole on my bookmark. Now I'm just going to go ahead and add some more decorations. You could decorate it with whatever shape you would like to have on your bookmark. I'm going to put this star over here on the bookmarks tab. So let's change the dimensions of this star, rotate it to whatever angle you find suitable. You could also rotate it freely as I'm doing here. Now, to place this star on top of my bookmark, I'm going to change the position of my work plane. So, we'll click on work plane right here. Now, place the new work plane on the surface of your bookmark. So, now click on the star and press Ctrl X on the keyboard to cut and then Ctrl V to paste. By doing this, we have changed the position of our star to stand on our new work plane. So now let's select the star and drag it on top of our bookmark surface. There you have it. Place it where you want. And now let's click on work plane once more and click on the outside to place the work plane back into its default position. I'm going to make some more adjustments to the position of my star. Now click and drag to select both shapes and click on the group command to group both shapes together. And there you have it. That's our finished 3D designed bookmark.
File. So let's click on that.
Now I'm going to show you how to export your work to be 3D printed later on. So let's go to the menu bar and click on Export. See that? Download and 3D print. Let's click on Export and we'll select, now for 3D printing we're going to select this file to be an STL file. Okay, now let's save the file to be on desktop so it will be easily accessible for us. You could also change the name of your file and check that your file is stereolithography mesh. Click on save and there we have our downloaded file. And there it is on our desktop. Now let's open it. The program that we're going to be using to open this STL file is Ultimaker Cura, because the 3D printer that we're going to be using is of the brand Ultimaker. Alright, now here is our 3D design, and as you can see here, it's inside this simulation of a 3D printer. So we're seeing our 3D print design on top of the bed of a 3D printer. However, this is simulated on this program. So you could also use the same controls as before in Tinkercad. You could press and hold the right mouse button to move the 3D printer, the simulation of a 3D printer around. And you could also zoom in and zoom out. Now we're going to slice our 3D design. By slicing, we're going to be converting our 3D design, our STL file, into a file readable by our 3D printer. The 3D design that we designed here is going to be converted into different slices, into different layers. So the 3D printer would know what to print layer by layer. Okay, I've pressed slicing. Now, when you press slicing, you're going to be presented with the time, how long it's going to take for this 3D design to print, and how much material, how much filament is going to be used up for this to be printed. So let's save to file or a removable SD card. Make sure that the file type is going to be a G-code file. And let's save it again to desktop. Now let's click on save. And now we could go ahead and close the Ultimaker Cura program. And there you have the G-code file is saved on our desktop right here. Now you could go ahead and save this to an SD card for you to put it in your 3D printer and print.